Hey, it's Frank here with 4D Honeybee, and I'm just going to do a quick little video today, just showing some highlights of beekeeping throughout the year and covering the 5 most important things that you need to do in August. Now, first off, of course, these are subjective. You could have a different list than I have, but it's a good list of things that you need to do as a beginner beekeeper, need to know about to get ready to plan out your fall and winter. Make sure your bees are going to survive. This is also basically for a climate zone 6 to 7. So I'm in southern Ontario in Canada. And so we have a winter to deal with, and it's not an overly harsh winter as compared to other winters, but certainly it's something that becomes a factor as far as how you treat your bees. So if you don't have a winter, or if you have a vastly different climate than what we have here, definitely these sets of priorities would not work for you, or at least would need to be redesigned for you. So here we go. In order of what I believe is most important. Number 1, first thing to do, queen right and laying. You've got to know that by August, your queen is starting to lay really good amounts of brood. She should have been laying all through the spring and summer as well, but come August, you've taken off your honey supers. You've probably had a first round of honey that you have harvested, and in August, you start to get these dog days of August. You may have a dearth, right? But you've got to make sure that your queen is laying brood, because the bees that you're seeing right now in your hive in August are not going to survive the winter. She needs a whole new round of bees that she needs to lay to get through the winter. So you need to have a queen right and laying. Go in there, do your inspections, make sure you're seeing good amounts of brood, larvae, eggs, and that your bees like your queen. Number 2. Numbers, bee numbers. You've got to know how many bees you're going to overwinter. So, and what I mean by this is, are you going with a single brood box or a double brood box? Because if you have enough bees and you want to do a double brood box, by all means, I've had plenty of double brood boxes make it through the winter, no problem. However, if you determine that there's not a great amount of bees in your hives, you got to keep in mind that a lot of these bees are going to be lost, right? So if you're looking at a brood box and you don't have at least 7 frames covered with bees, then you're not going to be able to sustain that brood box. So in other words, if you've got a full brood box down below and only 5 or 6 frames covered up above, you're needing to reduce to a single brood box to overwinter. And the reason why you want to plan that out now is that as you start heading into fall, you want to start forcing the queen. If you're going to go with a single brood box, you're going to need to start forcing the queen down into that bottom brood box to make her nest down there, right? To make her brood nest down there, because that's what she's going to have to survive in over winter. So figure that out and start to plan that out by adjusting where your queen ends up. Feeding. You've got to decide whether or not you need to start feeding your bees. Now, in a dearth situation, if your bees are not producing, if they're not bringing in enough resources and food and feed, then you've got to feed them, because they're not going to it's going to slow them down as far as their brood production. And of course, they just have to have resources in the hive for winter. So take a look at what your bees are bringing in. Take a look at your brood body boxes and your boxes in general and figure out how much you need to feed them, whether you should feed them pollen, whether you should feed them the sugars in honey or sugar water. Whatever you figure out, you should start doing then if you need it. Now, here in Ontario, we don't really have a dearth per se, and pretty much, short of very hot and dry weather, you've got honey flow all the time. So if your hives are weak, feed them. If your hives are low on resources, feed them. Mite and pest control is number 4. So you've got to start thinking about, or actually have to start performing your treatments for mites. Up here, it's a big problem, or even small hive beetles, right? Up here, we don't have small hive beetles because the winter wipes them out, but mites are a huge problem. What I was told by my mentor was that regardless of whether you think or not that you have mites, you have them. And sure enough, I've tested. The test that I came up with a couple of years ago showed that we had mites, but very small numbers. So numbers that were deemed to be below the treatable size. And so what I did as my own little experiment was I treated all but 2 hives, and those 2 hives didn't make it through the winter. So now I treat for mites all the time, no matter what. Now, the reason why you got to plan your treatment out is that there are a number of different treatments that you use. Some treatments, like Mite Away quick strips, just take about a week, but they have a temperature range that they have to be used in. So you've got to figure out what the temperature is doing, what your average temperatures are, and what the temperature is actually doing in that time frame, and decide if you're going to use Mite Away quick strips, you should do them at such and such a date, because also you're not supposed to have this on when you're not supposed to have most mite treatments on while you're feeding bees, right? Apivar takes a much longer time because it's based on actual foot transmission from the bees all around the hive. And again, look at what your requirements are for your mite treatments, because some may or may not allow you to have honey in there that you're going to take for human consumption. So Mite Away quick strips are not a factor. I believe Apivar doesn't allow you to use the honey for your own consumption. I could be mistaken on that. I haven't used Apivar for a little while, but check it out, because again, that has to work into your time schedule, into your planning when you're going to take the honey off. If you're waiting and leaving the honey on as long as possible, but then you're going to be using Mite Away quick strips, you might wait beyond the prescribed temperature range. So you might be doing this in September and realize that you're not in the right temperature range to use Mite Away quick strips. So you got to work your mite treatment into your overall plan of what you're doing with the hive and of course with your honey. So keep that in mind. Lastly, number 5, prepare your gear. So if you're going to, you have to make a plan for how you're going to overwinter your hives. Are you going to use a wrap? Are you going to feed them over the winter? Are you going to put some insulation under the lid? You have to figure that all out right about now and start to plan out your gear. That might mean you have to build some new boxes or buy some new boxes or treat some new boxes, whatever it may be. Get that going now. Get a plan for winter going now, because once fall hits, it can happen really fast here. Sometimes we go from summer right into winter and we don't get much of a fall. And once those temperatures drop, you want those bees protected. So make sure you figure out what you're going to do, plan out your feeding and whether that's going to require gear, plan out your overwintering, whether that's going to require gear, and get the gear. Don't wait too long, because often beekeeping supply stores don't want to carry gear over winter, right? So they might be sold out and they're not going to order gear just for you when you come in and ask for one more deep brood body box, okay? So keep that in mind, and if you plan all those things out, you'll be in good shape come September, October, November to get your bees ready for winter. Critical time right now is to do it. So once again, top 5. Number 1, most important thing, queen right and laying. Number 2, bee numbers, whether you're going to overwinter in 1 or 2 brood body boxes. Number 3, feeding, whether you have to feed them, what you have to feed them, and how much you have to feed them. Number 4, mite treatment and pest control in general. Do they need it right now? When are they going to need it? What type are you going to use? How long does it take? What are the temperature restrictions? And of course, what are the ramifications on honey if you're planning on harvesting honey before your mite treatment? Number 5, prepare your gear. Know what you got to do, make a plan for it, and get the gear ready for it, and you're in great shape. So that's it for my top 5 things to do for beginner beekeepers in August. Let me know your comments below. Let me know if there's something critical that you think should be in that top 5 list, or if maybe you disagree with the order or whatever. Your input, as long as it's constructive, is always welcome. At 4D Honeybee.